Hello, and welcome to the session today about chatting about course options in terms of maths, engineering, and computing sciences. It is about listening to some of our current students about their experiences, and then there's time afterwards to put forward your questions for them individually or as a group. The students on this session will be talking about their own experiences and perceptions of their course. They will not be representing the views of all students nor the course itself, and please remember that everyone's experiences are completely different. As for asking questions, just very quickly, the purpose of this session is to give you further information to help you choose your outside or optional courses. It is really important to make this decision this week so that you can confirm it with your school and also start your courses next week. If you haven't already, you should really go to the Course Options Hub, which is that web link on the screen there, and I will put it in the chat after I've spoken, as this is where you'll find all the course information on PATH, DRPS, and work out how it fits with your program timetable through the course timetable browser. You should aim to have at least 3 different choices so that when you speak to your school this week, you have more options in case the courses are full or they just don't fit within your program. We also have over 85-minute videos from lots of different academics from across all subject areas who are introducing you to their course. These are really great videos because they give you an insight into how the course will be taught, and also you get to meet the person who will be teaching you. So it's a really great resource to have a look at now. Some of our academics have also offered to hold virtual Q&A sessions or office hours this week, where that gives you an opportunity to meet them and discuss anything in detail about any of the courses that you're interested in. And you'll be able to find these on the Events app if you go under the Course Options menu and then find any of the sessions called Chat to an Academic. You'll be able to see who is available and who you can chat to throughout the week. So after exploring the website, watching the videos, maybe speaking to academics, and also listening to all of our students this week as well, you will then have to confirm your course choices. The deadline to choose your optional courses or your outside courses is the end of week 2, which is the 2nd of October. Unfortunately, in this session, we cannot give you any further advice about how you confirm your choices, as it's completely different per school, and your school should have provided the instructions for you this week about how that will work. So they might be doing that in their school induction session, or they might have emailed you about it already. If you have not heard from them at all about this, please get in touch with them absolutely immediately, because it's really important that you get this sorted. So this session is not going to be able to cover all the courses available under the subject grouping, but hopefully our panel today represents some of the courses that you might be interested in, or you may even find out something about courses that you haven't even considered yet. If there are courses that you're interested in, but we're not featuring in this session today, as I said, you'll be able to find more information on PATH through the Course Options Hub, so we'd recommend that you do that immediately. But that's enough of me speaking. I'm now really delighted to hand over to our current students who will talk about their experiences of their courses. As I said, after they've all spoken, we will open up the chat area for questions. Please do not raise your hand or type in into the chat box until all of our students have spoken. And with that, thank you very much. And I'm going to hand over to Jake now. Thank you.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you guys are. As you can see there, my name is Jake. The background of that picture is rainy Edinburgh, which I'm actually from. So as you can see, I'm Scottish. I'll just move here. I've born in Edinburgh. I've lived here for my whole life. I'm studying computer science, which in my opinion is the best subject, but that doesn't mean that your subject isn't great. I started studying last year, so hopefully the courses that I'm going to be speaking about are quite fresh in my mind still. So what interests me? A little bit about myself before we get started. To expand on technology, anything computing related, whether it's like building a computer, playing video games, or just like pulling apart my old like Nintendo DS just to see how it works and then putting it back together, hopefully without breaking it. I've not really broken anything yet, but you know, that's probably going to change. Maths, I give most of this down to, it's quite a logical subject. I'm quite a logical person. It ties in quite nicely with computing. I feel like maths is a kind of a must-have if you're getting into computing, especially the more complex things later on. But another thing I enjoy about maths is the fact that there's normally a correct answer and different ways you can approach it instead of maybe a more subjective answer, like maybe more social-based subjects. And physics, just because, you know, physics is cool. You've got space, you've got just sort of having a better understanding of how everything works. And also it ties in great with both maths and computing. There's a great physics course which I'll very briefly mention later. So why did I choose to study at Edinburgh? Well, I mean, it's quite local to me, obviously. I know the area, so I didn't really have to go somewhere new and experience new things. It's in a quite a nice location, I think, in the middle of town. There's brilliant facilities, and that doesn't just mean there's loads of cool computers and Appleton Tower. There's some very historical and beautiful buildings like McEwan Hall, which you don't really get to go in, but there's occasionally an event where you can go in, and it's an absolutely beautiful building. And stuff like the Informatics Forum as well. Also, I don't get to go in there often, but my PT is in there, and that's where I confirmed my course choices last year. And that's a really nice building as well. If you get to go in, I would definitely have a quick look around if you can. And yeah, the wealth of available resources, the library in the university is absolutely massive. There's basically anything you could want to study. There's probably something about it in the library. And yeah, I had friends studying here. I had a friend who left high school the year before me. He went to the university, and I was speaking to him like, oh, like, can you tell me a bit about Edinburgh? And from what he said, you learn a lot, which is very true, but it's also really good, because you feel quite accomplished at the end of the year, I feel, because you do learn quite a lot, but it can be challenging to keep up. Do I like it there? Absolutely. I think the university is really good. There's a lot of support you get, which makes the entity not so bad, because it's quite easy to deal with all the support you get. And it's a very enjoyable experience. It's nice to explore the campus in your spare time. And it's always nice when you get a random surprise when there's a uni building just in a place you didn't know, and you get Wi-Fi suddenly when you're exploring. So my first year courses, all the courses I'm going to be talking about were mandatory for me at least. So they are Introduction to Computation, Object-Oriented Programming, Introduction to Linear Algebra, and Calculus and its Applications. Just to touch on my optionals, Computer Simulation is a really cool course if you like physics and programming. But yeah, I won't touch on those because that's not the right place. So to talk a little bit about these courses, I'll start at the top. Introduction to Computation. It starts off with functional programming, instead of object-oriented, and they do that deliberately because not as many people will have experience with functional programming. So we just go over programming concepts. And because it's functional, it's deliberately for people who aren't really too experienced with programming, because it helps bring everyone up to the same level without overwhelming you with, oh, you should probably know how to program already, or you should probably know how to program already. So it starts off fairly slow if you have programming experience, but that's great because it lets everyone get up to the same sort of playing field. And yeah, so it's in the language called Haskell, which is a functional programming language. And the lecturer I had was one of the guys who made Haskell, he was an absolutely brilliant lecturer. He knew probably too much, to be honest, but he was a very, very smart man. And then the other side, it's kind of split into two. The other side of Introduction to Computation is a logic. So just to read out some of the things in logic, because it sounds really cool. You've got propositional logic, Boolean algebra, satisfiability, regular expression or regex, and the fancy ones are non-deterministic finite automata, which sound a lot cooler than they probably are, but they're very, from someone who's never looked at logic, it's a very interesting subject, but it can be quite hard to get into, I'll be honest. But once you can do it all, it's quite rewarding. Object-oriented programming. That was second semester, and that was in Java, which is probably one of the biggest coding languages out there. I'd say that object-oriented was maybe a little bit faster paced compared to Introduction to Computation. They did kind of assume you have programming experience, but at the same time, it was still slow enough where you could learn everything. Yeah, that's about it. You just learn Java and object-oriented concepts. Introduction to linear algebra. There's a lot of matrices, vectors, subspaces. I found it quite theoretical, and I like to visualize when I do maths, so I thought it's sometimes challenging at points, but overall it's quite a nice subject and it's quite important for computing. And then calculus and its applications, yes, it's just a lot of calculus, both differential calculus, integral calculus, limits, sequences, series. It was a lot easier, in my opinion, than linear algebra, because it was a lot easier to visualize and it was a lot more hands-on, which was sort of just easier to do. So instead of, oh, think about this problem, it was just sort of do the maths, which I prefer for sure. And just, yeah, so my advice for this stuff, I just sort of go over these. So I'd make as many friends as you can, because having friends from different backgrounds really can help you out. So for example, I had someone who'd never programmed before, and when we were doing functional programming, they helped me quite a bit because I was still sort of stuck in object oriented from my past experience. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's never going to help you if you just stay stuck because you're too scared to ask. No question's a dumb question, really. Just, yeah, make sure you ask. Khan Academy and other resources are brilliant. Khan Academy, especially for the maths courses, and stuff like YouTube and Stack Overflow for programming. And yeah, don't fall behind, because it'll get harder to catch up the longer you stay behind, and especially the earlier as well. So just make sure you keep on top of it. Use all the support you do get, because you do get quite a lot. And yeah, the last 2 points kind of merge together, but basically what I want to say is the work is there to test you. It's not there just to be work. So do make sure you give it a go early, so then you know, all right, this is quite easy, I'll just leave this, or oh, this is quite hard actually, and then you can sort of gauge how much work you'll need to do, but definitely give it a go right away. And just to go away from the academics, have fun. Don't let your life turn into the subject you're studying. Make sure you get involved with societies, friends, hobbies, get out there. Have a nice balance for you. And then just find what works for you. Some people say get a routine. I don't personally use a routine. I prefer what I call productive chaos, which is basically just I'll randomly get motivation and I'll just do it, which probably isn't the best way to do it, but it works for me. So just find what works for you, find a nice balance that works for you, and just keep going with it, because I'm sure if you have the motivation and if you keep going, you'll be able to do whatever you want, really. So that's all I really wanted to say. So I'll now pass on to the next student. Thanks everyone for listening, and yes.
Hi everyone. First of all, I hope you're all well and excited for the upcoming academic year, despite the ongoing circumstances. My name is Enrique, or Kike. I'm Spanish, and I'm a fourth-year artificial intelligence and computer science student. So some things about me. As I said, I come from Alicante, a very sunny town in Spain, so very different to the weather we're used to here in Edinburgh. I started my degree in 2017, and hopefully I'll be graduating this year. And maybe I'll be pursuing a master's afterwards here as well, but I'll have to decide that later this year. So some of my hobbies are sport, any sport really, but I I played basketball in a team here. I've played basketball for my whole life, and it's something I keep doing here while I continue my studies. I also love learning languages. I was lucky to go to an international school, so I learned a lot of languages there. And yeah, in my free time when I've finished studying, I love to watch a film with my housemates or start a series. And something I've gotten into lately is photography. Very amateur photography, but I like to find cool shots and later edit them in any way I think is interesting. So these are the main reasons why I chose Edinburgh. As I mentioned before, I come from a multicultural education system, so I wanted to continue studying somewhere else. There would be a lot of cultural diversity, and Edinburgh is definitely a great place for that. I've met people from all parts of the world. And second reason was the academic reputation. The University of Edinburgh normally ranks between the 25 top universities in the world, and also for computer science, it's usually top 20, top 25. So I definitely felt intrigued to know more about it. And it's, for example, in artificial intelligence, it has a very important research institution, and you feel you're currently learning new things here, and it's very modern, everything you learn. Now, another reason was the city. I knew it was a beautiful city. I hadn't discovered it before actually deciding my choice, but once I came here, I knew this was the place for me, and I was very happy with my decision. And probably a very important factor as well was that it was free for European Union students. Education was free for European Union students at the time. And yeah, that was a major part of my decision as well. These are the main things I like about Edinburgh. As I mentioned before, it's a beautiful city. I think it combines the old architecture and the modern architecture very well. And almost any street you might visit has a beautiful building, and there's such beautiful landscapes. It's got a lot of green spaces as well. I would say my favorite are the Meadows, which is like Edinburgh's very own Central Park, I would say, and Arthur Seat, Holyrood Park. Then you also have Princess Street Gardens, which separate the old town and the new town. It's also it's a city that is not too small, not too big. By this I mean it feels more to me like a big town than a city. And although it's a touristy city, you don't feel overwhelmed by the amount of people there are at all. It's also very well connected. You have the airport, you have a train station very close to the central campus as well. And the weather was much better than I expected. Coming from Spain, everyone mentioned how horrible the weather would be here, but it's been okay so far for me. I don't find it that bad as people had warned me about. And about uni, it's got great facilities, like Jake mentioned before. Appleton Tower, which is like the School of Informatics' very own building for students, has around 6-7 floors for computer labs and study rooms. The university also has a lot of extracurricular activities, so no matter what hobby you might have, I'm sure you'll find people and a group of people to practice this hobby with. And again, it's very multicultural. There's staff from all parts of the world as well, not only students. So I will go very briefly with courses I took because they're pretty much the same as Jake. Introduction to Linear Algebra, I agree with Jake. It can be challenging, and mainly because you're dealing with abstract vector spaces and it's not very easy to visualize. But try to get the most out of it because linear algebra will be very important if you want to continue doing things related to machine learning. Calculus and its applications, it's easier to get your head around, I think, as well. And you might find that most of the things you have covered already, but be careful because then it gets harder. But I think calculus and its applications is easier than linear algebra. Oh, and as Jake mentioned, do as many exercises as possible, and resources like YouTube or Khan Academy are a key part to your education as well. I think I've learned as much with outside resources as I've learned with university teaching. Introduction to computation. When I was in first year, actually, these were two separate courses. You had computation and logic on one side and functional programming on the other. And as he mentioned already, functional programming, it tries to put everyone at the same starting level, and you get to know different concepts of programming. And object-oriented programming is another style of programming, which is very widely used. And you will learn to use Java, which is a language that you'll find in the outside world used a lot, and also throughout your degree. And especially, for example, in this second year course called Informatics 2 Software Engineering and Professional Practice, you will have to develop a small case software system with Java. Now, onto my final tips. Sorry. I'm a more routine kind of person. I do like to have an organized timetable and know what I'll be doing at each moment of the day. It allows me also to have extra time for socializing or hobbies or exercise. Personally, as I play in a sports team, I get to do 3 of these at the same time. So that's something I really enjoy because I can do everything at once. And yeah, hopefully you found this information useful, and I hope you're motivated for this year. Now I'm gonna pass it on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the session today. I'm Lily. I'm in my 4th year of computer science, and I'm from Germany. I grew up in Cologne. I started studying at Edinburgh Uni in 2017, and I started when I started, I was enrolled in electronics and electrical engineering. But then I transferred to computer science in 2nd year, so I can tell you a bit about engineering here at Edinburgh as well as computer science. I spent my last year in Vancouver in Canada as exchange student, and my main interests related to my degree are AI and machine learning. And outside of university, I mainly do sports, so I love to do mountaineering, rock climbing, and skiing whenever I can. And I love to travel as well. So I really enjoyed my year abroad where I got to explore Canada. So yeah, I chose to study in Edinburgh, which is why I like it. These reasons is because it's an excellent university for computer science. And what I really enjoyed and liked about the program is that the first years are super flexible. So I think most of you will have electives this year. And I really enjoyed that because it gave me the chance to explore different subjects and also to adapt my degree to my personal interests. And then Edinburgh as a city is really amazing to live in. I think the uni has a great student life, and there's a huge number of societies and clubs that you've probably already seen or will get to see this week. so everyone really has the chance to find something they like. These are the classes I did first year. So yeah, just a quick note about physics. That was my outside class. It's not really part of the session, which I really enjoyed, but I won't focus on right now. In the School of Engineering, I took Engineering 1 in first semester, Electrical Engineering 1 in second semester, and then the 2 Engineering Mathematics classes. Engineering 1 is a joint introduction to the 4 engineering disciplines that you can study here, which are mechanical, electrical, civil, and chemical engineering. And out of these, you choose at least 2 that you'll study this semester. But if you want to, you can also attend more, like all 4 lectures, or 3 of them, depending on what you're interested in. And I really like that this course introduces you to your main discipline, but also that you got to explore the other disciplines, because you might not be familiar to all of them and know what exactly it is about. So yeah, if you're curious about them, you're allowed to just study all 4 of them, which is super nice. And then as part of this course, we also had 3 big group projects where you would do like meet your group for an afternoon and then prepare a poster presentation. For example, in one, or write an academic report. So they also introduce you in the style of working that'll be more important in an academic context later. Then Electrical Engineering 1 was more in depth, because it just focused on electronics and electrical engineering. You got first hand-on lab exercise, and you really get to know your classmates, independent of whether or not this is your elective, or if you're studying the electrical engineering or joint degree, because it is quite a small class, so there's a really good community. And then the 2 engineering mathematics courses, I really liked a lot, mainly because I like studying maths, and they are very well organized. They cover the basic maths that you will need for engineering or computer science or any physics classes that you might study in the future. I don't think you can take this if you're not studying engineering, but it is kind of the equivalent of the first year maths courses that Jake and Enrique told you about for computer science. And it was also great that this class really took into account coming from all over the world. So you might have done high school in Scotland or England, or in a European country like I did, in Asia, wherever really, and they bring everyone up to speed. And then in the School of Informatics, you heard most about the second and third class on this slide from Jake and Enrique, so I won't focus on them as much. And in first semester, because I wasn't studying informatics then, I took a general introduction into computer programming, which I really enjoyed, because it was great for non-informatics students to get to know the subject, but I don't think it's offered anymore. Although there is similar subjects, I think, that you can take if you're interested in informatics, but you study, say, maths or engineering or any other subject really. They're made very approachable, at least this class, so it didn't require any programming experience, and I really enjoyed it, and most people that I spoke to did as well. And then, because I enjoyed it this much, I asked if I could take the actual informatics courses in second semester. So back then it was still split into object-oriented programming and data analysis. Don't know how exactly they do it this year, but as you heard already, they are more advanced. Although I didn't like the first semester course was the only experience I had in programming and in computer science, and I still found that the professors really make an effort to get everyone to understand it. And I mean, I was struggling a bit more, I think, than my classmates, but they helped me catch up and really enjoy these classes as well. And then just to finish up, I think that whilst the situation is daunting right now and kind of strange for everyone, I really hope that you get to enjoy this year and your time at Edinburgh University. A few tips that I have is that you should not be scared to approach professors or your tutors whenever you have a question, because everyone here is really happy to help you. Yeah, to answer any questions you might have about the class, about organizational stuff, etc. And then, assuming that you have electives, choose courses that you're interested in, because that is the main thing that will get you to study, that will give you motivation and make your classes fun. And then, unrelated to classes, I can just recommend you to join society clubs, to try new things that you might not know yet, or to keep up doing a sport that you've done growing up. You'll meet great people and it makes uni a lot of fun. So thank you, everyone. I think Leslie will now take over again, so you can ask any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Jake, Kiki, and Lily. That was really interesting. It was great to hear your experiences and your tips, and